Explorer, you've arrived at the threshold of an epic journey where self-love meets fitness. Gather your courage as we seek to challenge the limits of our bodies, become mentally resilient, and learn to cherish ourselves for the beautiful individuals we are. Along the way, we'll be joined by incredible mentors in the pole and fitness community who will share their wealth of knowledge to help you blossom. This is the Pole Adventures podcast, and your adventure starts now. Welcome, explorers, to another episode of Pole Adventures. I'm your host, Paris, an eternally struggling pole dancer, here to bring you the wisdom of Andrea Plancarte. Andrea is a physical therapist specializing in pole and the host of the Invert, Bend and Balance Symposium, and she helps dancers build up the strength and flexibility to nail all their dream skills safely. Today we'll be exploring how to create a super simple on and off the pole training plan that you'll actually stick to. So thank you so much for coming on today.
I'm thrilled to be here, Paris. Thank you so much. And you're not the only one that struggles with pole. I think this is everyone has their own journey, and it's an ongoing struggle, but it's a fun one. So
Yeah.
Yes.
But first, I'd love for you to tell us a bit about your pole adventures. Like, what was your why for pole?
I am very thankful for pole because it has led me to meet so many people, travel. I think one of my first pole adventures was I had the opportunity to be a work study in Body and Pole's at Body and Pole, which is a studio in New York. And at that time, Marlo Fiskin was an instructor there, Michelle Stanek, Stephen Retchless, sorry. And the having access to them on a regular basis, on a daily basis almost, was such an amazing experience. It opened my world. And then, I just organizing these summits has also been amazing to talk and dive deeper into people's lives, famous pole dancers, and get to know what their story. So many of us know of like big pole names, but we see them on Instagram all the time, but we don't know what they're going through. So that's been a real adventure too.
Yeah, awesome. And for our fellow nervous beginners, do you have an embarrassing pole moment to share?
Well, yes. The one that comes to mind is I was teaching once, and I usually like leaving my leggings until the end of my warm-up or until it's absolutely necessary to take them off. Usually just to stay warm because I slide very easily. I like cool down very quickly. And this time I took my leggings off, and I brought with them my shorts.
Oh no.
Along the way. And yes, of course I was the instructor, and yeah, so it was embarrassing, but well, just a moment of laughter, unfortunately, with some students that I felt close to, but it was still embarrassing.
I think wardrobe malfunctions happen to everybody. So at least it wasn't on stage or at that time.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's the one that comes to mind right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think to start with, how can we best assess our current fitness level in order to create this like tailored training plan for ourselves?
Wow, this is a very intricate question or answer. And basically, it would be to look at where we are in a performance pyramid. I'll explain more what that means with each of the basic movement patterns. So the basic movement patterns are squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling. And specifically for pole dancers and circus artists, I would add flexibility movements like pikes, front splits, middle splits, doing back bridges, and anything that's rotational.
What's hinging?
Hinging means when you bend from the hips forward. So a hinge is the thing that binds the door
Yeah,
and makes it open and close. So you do the same motion with your hips. So it's like opening and closing
your hip
your
flexors.
hips. Yes, and it has to do with the glutes and the hip flexors. So yeah. So basically, it would be looking at the ability that you have to do those basic movements, and then where you're at in this performance pyramid, which goes like this. In essence, the first layer of the pyramid would be stabilization. This has to do with joint stability, posture control, balance, coordination. So, if we're to give a specific example, if we're looking at a squat, the ability a person has to do a squat with good technique, no body weight, no extra weight or load. And while you're squatting, for example, if your knees go in, like I forgot the word, but if your knees move around a lot, if your ankles move around a lot, if you're
You get
when you're
shaky.
lowering down,
Like you get shaky.
getting shaky, but also people that don't have a lot of joint stability can their ankles can wobble around a lot when they're moving. So this is something that you would look at, and they would be indicators that you would need to work on this phase of the performance pyramid. The second level would be strength endurance, and this means that your muscles are able to work for a long time. The third layer would be hypertrophy, and this it just means increasing the muscle size. Oh, and I forgot to give an example of the strength endurance. So maybe if we're going back to the squat, it means like being able to do 20 squats in a row without extra weight.
So
For
to
hyper
basically like summarize, that's like flexibility, endurance, and then strength.
it would be stability, joint stability and alignment, being able to do a movement with proper alignment and uh, and stabilize it properly. The second one would be endurance, and the third layer would be strength, and then the highest level would be power. So doing something as fast as possible and moving the load as fast as possible. And within the strength part, there are also some sub levels, but we don't need to dive into that to overwhelm the audience. Yes. For the last level, for example, performing a squat with power, an example of performing a squat with power would be to jump, for example. So squat jumps or box jumps, things like that. Yes. And for the strength layer, it would be to add extra resistance, either weights, doing it with bands, things like that. So to summarize, it would to assess where you're at, you would have to look at these basic movement patterns and then see where you're able to perform them. If you're at a place where you still need to work on the stability and the alignment of that movement, where you need to work on endurance, or if you're ready to like add more resistance, or if those are all nailed, then adding power.
That's really cool. The pyramid.
Yes, that's how strength training works. Basically, a personal trainer would take you through all of these phases, depending on what you're working on and the different movements. And of course, for flexibility, it's just the ability to get into that flexibility pose, and stay in it and not get injured. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. So see where you're at on each of the pyramid layers of different parts of your bodies. That's
Exactly.
that's basically
And the
step
movements.
one.
Step one. Yes.
So then after that, what would be some key milestones to aim for?
Some key milestones. Let's say I mentioned the basic movement patterns. So with my clients, when my one-on-one clients, I check exercises that represent these movement patterns. And for the pulling, it would be the ability to do pull-ups. For the pushing, push-ups, right? Squat, I do look at back squats. So loading the squat with a bar behind you. And for the hinging, a deadlift. So some those are strength exercises, like very, very basics. So some milestones that I would definitely encourage beginner pole dancers to work towards would be doing at least one pull-up. Getting to 3 to 5 pull-ups would be like you're on a very, very good place. So doing one pull-up, right? And this translates to a lot of things we do, like climbing, being
Yeah,
able to hold yourself on the pole, right?
inverts and
Uh-huh.
everything. This
Yes, exactly. We pull all the time on the pole. So and this is such a complex movement that if you're able to do a pull-up, um, you are definitely in a good way to um, do harder things on the pole. Then for the second one, push-ups. A milestone for me would definitely being able to do 8 to 10 full push-ups. This means like from a plank position, not with the knees bent. I would definitely work towards that, but maybe
yeah, I suck at
even
push-ups.
yes, push-ups. But even doing 10 with knees on the floor is a good uh, good indicator that there's strength there's a good solid foundation of pushing strength. Then the ability to hang on a bar with your elbows straight and just hang out there for 30 seconds. That gives us a lot of information about your shoulder stability, also endurance,
Are
and
you
just
activating anything there, or are you just hanging?
mhm. Well, there are two types of hangs. There's the active and there's a passive hang. Specifically for this milestone, I'm talking about the passive hang, where you're not engaging anything, you're just hanging out there. Unless you're the kind of pole dancer that has hypermobility, you hyperextend your elbows, for example, then there would be some slight engagement to avoid those
Yeah.
extra degrees that can be harmful. A plank, holding a plank for more than 30 seconds, and a side plank. This is where your elbow is on the floor, and you're like
Yeah,
lifting your
you're on
hips
the
up from the
side.
floor. Also, hip bridge for 30 seconds. So these are all tests, and it's not something that I invented. These are also done for physical therapy, for example. And one that I would incorporate for pole dancers is the ability to do toes to bar. So when you're hanging on the bar, lifting your feet and getting them to touch the bar
Oh,
with
yeah.
your yes, with your knees extended. So straight legs. A good milestone, I would say, for a beginner pole dancer would be to do 5 to 10 knees to chest, also hanging, and then the ability to do at least one toes to bar. So those are things to look at. And to assess when you're at the gym or somewhere you can hang.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd recommend that we know before making a plan?
Well, yes,
I know there's a lot of
um,
things, I'm sure, but
yes,
some maybe it's just one important thing to like keep in mind, I guess.
hmm definitely working on alignment and posture is essential because the way you are or move around throughout your day will translate to how you move on the pole or how you exercise. So building this awareness of where your neck is, if you're in a forward head posture like a
Mm.
chicken, yes,
Yeah,
or
I'm always
rounding your
hunched over a
shoulders,
desk.
exactly
Sorry.
the desk position throughout the day. This will also show up when you're working out. So, working on this alignment, postural alignment, is key for other things in exercise and fitness. It doesn't mean that you can't do any do pull work or exercise until you're like super until your posture and alignment is amazing, but it is something to incorporate and work on continuously, and that will help you see better results in your pole and fitness journey. Definitely taking injuries and pain into account. Ignoring pain. Pain should not be ignored. Um, there are, and also building awareness or getting to know the different types of pain. Um, there's soreness, and that is something normal for exercise. But then there's this stabbing pain that happens, like knowing what the difference between acute pain is and chronic pain and soreness. Acute pain is something that happens like very quickly, very recent, related to a specific event.
The
Chronic
ow
pain, uh-huh,
pain. Yeah.
yeah, and chronic pain, you've been carrying it, it's been showing up for more than 4 weeks, for example. And both of those are something that I really recommend to go and see, get treated, and not ignoring them, because the longer you wait for things to resolve by themselves, they usually don't, the longer the treatment will be and the more investment you'll have to make.
Yeah,
Um,
if you train something in the wrong way, or
yes.
yeah, you get stuck.
I would also think about um, all the amount of time you spend moving outside of your training sessions, and that's sometimes even more important than what you do for longevity. So there are sedentary people, and then they're
No,
active sedentary people. Well, no, I'm not trying to like
no.
say like who is, but let's say active sedentary people are those who like have office jobs and will spend a lot of time sitting down and then try to compensate for all those hours of no movement with a, let's say,
Hard
2
workout.
hours of exercise. When this is the pattern, or when this is the your way of living, your cells don't get as nourished as they should, and they don't get the stimuli that they need to be healthy, or all the nutrients they need to be healthy throughout the day. So that's when um, when disease starts to happen. So incorporating movement breaks throughout your work time or study time, or um, changing the way you move throughout the day is essential for longevity. And I think that's very important, sometimes even more important than what you do in a training session.
So those are all some really good like cross training stuff that we can do off the pole. But what would you recommend anything specific on the pole?
hmm On the pole, it all depends on what trick or movement you're working on. Um, Definitely for beginner pole dancers, crunches, working on the ability to hook your leg on the pole, even when you're not inverted, like practicing a cupid on the floor is very important. Just the ability to climb up and sit. I'm not being very specific because it all depends. The conditioning exercises depend on what you're working towards.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and every person will have to work on different things. Some people get their uh, inversions or choppers very quickly, but maybe aren't able to climb or have difficulty with their jasmine. So, and maybe it's the opposite for other people. Everyone will most likely have to do some conditioning drills, but there should be specific to the movement that they're trying to get better at.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, and working both on and off the pole will make things happen much quicker. The body likes variability. It likes working. It likes having different sources of information. So doing a similar movement off the pole or on a different apparatus will help you understand it much better, develop the strength and coordination to do it on the pole. So definitely combining them is super, super important.
Mm. So how can we find the right balance of consistency and frequency for that works for us as well as incorporating rest?
Yes, it all depends. Okay, so uh, pole dancers have a big tendency to train the same way throughout the year. And this is something that has been taken from dancers and in other sports, or yes, in other sports, they cycle through different phases. And let's say there's a
Like
competition
summer and winter
phase.
and or
No, no, no. Like, let's think of a person that wants to run a marathon. They have to go through general preparatory phase where they work on basic strength, mobility, Then they go through like a specific preparatory phase where they work on the technique, the running technique, let's say, building that endurance for running. And then there's like the pre-competitive season, and then there's a competitive season. So all of these seasons or phases, the training looks different. And we don't have that in pole, or it's something that's very rare to see. And the amount of cross training, the amount of time you dedicate to work on pole tricks or on choreography depends on what phase you're at, like what your goal is for that season, or that's how the ideal should be. So I can throw a number at you. Let's say in regular strength training, working out twice a week would be considered maintenance. Like you're maintaining your strength. Working out for three times a week would be you are you can gain strength by working out 3 times a week. But if you're preparing for a competition, maybe your time, your energy levels, and all the other things you have to cover won't give you enough time to do the 3 times a week. So things have to change. And that's what I'm referring to. It all depends on what phase and what your goals for a period of time are. So I would say, for example, if someone is the way I would guide my beginner pole dancers would be to work on strength and flexibility for a period. This would usually be 6 to 8 weeks, and then switch to working on or focusing on pole dance movements. And maybe the amount of time they dedicate to strength and flexibility reduces, and the amount of classes they take to learn new tricks or practice time on the pole increases in that phase. And then, let's say, I would encourage them to change to, well, if they're into choreography and dancing, maybe more like switching for the next 6 to 8 weeks on more of a dancing and exploration season. So cycling through these seasons is very important. The amount of time you dedicate to each of these components that help us become well-rounded pole dancers changes. So it's kind of difficult to give throw out numbers, and it also depends on the time the person has, right? So we don't want to. It's very important that a good measure for knowing if you're overloading yourself is that if you're showing up to your training sessions without energy or motivation. So
So dial it back.
Also considering your energy is very important. So I think I went all over the place with this answer, but
yeah, but
definitely
basically,
sorry,
whatever phase or season you want to focus on, do something for 6 to 8 weeks, a good time period, and then move on to something else so that your body gets a rest, and also you stay interested.
Exactly. Yes. It's very easy to lose motivation when you keep doing the same thing for a very, very long period, or to get frustrated, and to fall into a plateau.
Yeah,
That's the great recipe to fall into a plateau. When you keep doing the same thing for a long, long period of time. So going through phases is super smart, a smart way of training. And definitely in these phases, I would always try to include strength training of some sort. So lifting weights, or whatever part of that pyramid that we talked about earlier you're at. Flexibility, your technique, and if you're into dancing, but the amount of time you do each of these things varies throughout the phase. hmm And of course, how much time you do have to train. So I wouldn't ask someone that only has 3 hours a week, or trains 3 times a week, to do, let's say, 3 hours of strength training a week, trying to go to change the ratios in every phase, and hit some strength training, some flexibility training, and some technique training.
Yeah, that's good. But besides like switching it up, what do you have any other tips for basically staying committed and motivated and being able to like celebrate our progress?
Yes, absolutely. I encourage people to record themselves. Of course, if it's allowed in your pole classes, because some studios are very don't allow you to record the classes. But yes, if you have the time to save some space and see what you're doing, it allows you to not only it gives you direct feedback on what you're doing and what can be improved, but it also helps you see and track where you started and the progress that you've made. And every time you do that you do things, and you look at your mistakes, you improve. So going back to the videos of when you started working on a trick, like, at least to me, it always helps me say, like, oh, I am making progress. Even if it's very, very small progress, I am moving forward.
Yeah, just take the video when you suck and just put it away. Don't worry about it, and you'll thank yourself in 6 months, a year time, looking
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, you do need a big, either a cloud, an external cloud, or a
Yeah,
big memory, because, you know,
there's a lot of
um,
stuff.
yes, but even just uploading them to Instagram, being brave enough to show where you're at in your journey, and being okay. But yes, definitely recording yourself. The other thing that works very well is logging, writing down how many repetitions, what weight you're using, if you're in the case of strength training. And that way you can always, on the next session, push yourself a little bit more. And also, when you finish your 6 weeks or 8 weeks phase, you can look back and see, like, oh, I did get stronger, because I started with, let's say, 5 pounds, and now I'm lifting 15, or I don't know, whatever. So keeping track, I think, is essential to stay motivated. It does take time, but it's a very, very useful tool.
I also think having a lot of little goals is helpful, especially like the fun ones. Like I want to be able to do this trick or something. Like having
Mm-hmm.
those always is helpful.
Yes, looking for inspiration, um, either in other classes and on Instagram, looking at what's possible if you don't fall into the trap of comparing yourself, right? Um, but that also helps staying consistent with training. Then having a pull buddy or a training buddy for accountability, and really, really, if you struggle a lot with showing up or get bored or feel clueless and want to see progress, I believe the best way to go is with a coach, hiring a coach. That's the fast track to
Yeah.
achieve your goals.
Awesome. And if there was just one thing you could let every pole dancer know, what would it be?
I think it will be very cheesy and but really enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. It's unique for each person. What's I think unique about pole is that you can get so many benefits. Um, have fun, fitness benefits, a community, and really. And sometimes you forget about things like this because you get frustrated that you're not well, or at least that's what has happened to me, that you're not getting a trick. So being being patient, knowing that things don't happen overnight, that pull is difficult. Trying to enjoy the small wins is essential for this, because it will, like, if you're a regular person, like most people will take, it will take time to build the strength, to build the coordination, to do those really awesome pole tricks.
Yeah. And in
And
coming back, I really had to set aside the competitive nature and just take it slow, do the small goals, small wins, and it's been working much better so far.
yes, enjoying every moment, and really thinking that it's about you and not the other people. Like, that's, you're doing it because you enjoy it, and getting a trick doesn't make you, like, make you more valuable or less valuable. Like, what you're able to do on the pole has nothing to do with your worth. Also, knowing that your ability to pull, like, to what you're able to do on the pole will change throughout your life. So you can't attach your worth to what you're able to do. Like,
There's
things
so many other factors.
happen. Yes, your job can, like, you have more load in your job, you can get pregnant, you can get injured, but don't let those changes steal the joy of pole dancing.
Yeah, that's so good. And I know you have a bunch of workshops. Would you like to let us know a bit more about it?
Yes, so I am starting to do monthly workshops, where we will look at a trick, understand the technique, the good technique, and go over on the pole and off the pole conditioning drills, what the everything that's needed to get that move. I will start with the, like, most popular moves that people struggle with: inversions, shoulder mounts, handsprings, butterflies, and then go to other ones that people start asking for, maybe Allegra, ballerina, uh, diving into what's in the twisted grip and how to avoid injuries. So this, I want to do monthly workshops, and the next one, I don't know when this podcast will be released, but the next one will be inversions. So definitely keep an eye on that.
That'll be a popular one.
Yes.
And where can our explorers best find you?
Um, on Instagram with Andrea Plancarte PT. That's the handle, or my website, andreaplancarte.com. I'm sure you'll drop the link
Yeah,
somewhere. Uh-huh.
that'll all
Yes,
be
feel
below.
free to reach out, send me a DM. I'm always happy to get to know you and to help you become the pole dancer you want to be.
Yeah, amazing. So make sure to go check that out, guys. And Andrea, thank you so much for being our guide on creating this training plan that we can stick to, and thank you for everyone for tuning in.
Thank you very much, Paris.
We've reached the end of our adventure today, so until next time, remember to stay strong, keep pushing your limits, and embrace your individual journey. Don't forget to grab your free access to the Pole Adventures Compendium, a collection of incredible resources to help you progress on your pole journey. And if you enjoyed today's adventure, make sure to leave a review so other explorers can embark on the journey with us. This is the Pole Adventures Podcast, and your next adventure awaits.